Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Pijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamanatira Vanachadi Yamanatira Vanachadi Jaya Raja Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachadi Yamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, everybody. This is a Sunday feast lecture. Sunday feast comes later. And what the understanding that I've gotten from Yasodanandana is two things. Taking one of the, can we turn this off? He'll do. He that's Brahman realization. Okay, so chapter 9 from Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam, and take something from that chapter 9, Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam, explain its content, and then how does that apply to us in our modern situation? The the phrase, the phrase, some water. Okay. The phrase is sometimes used, the timeless wisdom of the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, and of course the Bhagavatam. Timeless wisdom. Our time and our circumstance are quite different than what Grandfather Bhishma was undergoing. But the principles, the celebrated principles of wisdom apply in our present circumstance and future circumstance and past circumstance. It's timeless. We're going to hear about time. It's a fascinating topic. And it's really easy for me to get lost in it because it's so fascinating, but I'll try to control myself. We know from Bhagavad Gita, there are 5 principal subject matters in Bhagavad Gita. And the one that's most mysterious is time. The living entity, Jiva, the supreme, Ishvara, karma, everybody knows about karma, and material nature, Prakriti. But this mysterious one is time. So Grandfather Bhishma is going to speak about time, and I'm going to only speak a little bit about this vast, mysterious subject of time. We'll start with the context. The chapter 9 is entitled "The Passing Away of Bhishma Dev." So as we know, Bhishma Dev was given a benediction by his father. His father must have been a very powerful person because just by his saying so, it happened. His father gave him this benediction. They didn't have to leave his body unless he chose to. So he's going to choose the time to leave his body in this chapter, or described in this chapter. But the scene is, Kurukshetra battle is over, and the Pandavas are victorious, and as was the reservation of Yudhishthira and others, Arjuna also, it's going to be so many people will die. And so it was done. And Yudhishthira was installed as the king. There's some ringback. Can you fix the sound? Funerals were performed. Grandfather Bhishma is still lying on the battlefield. Knowing that Grandfather Bhishma wanted the Pandavas to take the throne, although he took the opposite side from them for different reasons, he hadn't left his body yet. So the Pandavas, dressed in royal attire, knowing that that would be very pleasing to Grandfather Bhishma to see it, yay, it happened. He's now the king. So dressed up, Krishna and so many sages, a long list of sages, came to the battlefield to bid farewell to Grandfather Bhishma. Now, the situation that happened before the battle is not only Arjuna, but Yudhishthira was also, let's not have this battle. But Krishna wanted the battle, and so it took place. And when it was over, virtuous Yudhisthira was thinking, how horrible. So that I can sit on the throne, so many people have died. And his sadness, his lamentation over that circumstance, no one could check it. He was beside himself with grief. We can only imagine. Even Krishna tried and tried to pacify him. Didn't work. The reason is Krishna wanted Grandfather Bhishma to pacify him. He likes when his devotee does something even better than he does. He wanted that. Because there may have been some uncertainty hanging over Grandfather Bhishma, why this and that? Why didn't he stop Dushasana from disrobing Draupadi? Why did he take the side of Duryodhana? Why did he fire arrows and take a vow to kill Arjuna? So to take away that cloud of uncertainty or whatever, Krishna wanted Grandfather Bhishma to do something even he couldn't do. And he did. So imagine your grandfather. Now imagine if you were a Pandava, imagine if you were a pure devotee, and the person that raised you in the absence of your father is lying before you in this condition. How are you going to feel? Really bad. Really bad. And Grandfather Bhishma received all the assembled people. Krishna himself was also there. Although he couldn't do the usual hospitality program that a virtuous person will do, just by his words and whatever else, his demeanor, everyone was so pleased and satisfied, because cultured people have a way to do that. He was such a person. And he saw something that made him very happy. Yudhisthira is the king, because he's lying on a bed of arrows, but he's not taking part in the ceremony. He's the king. And he also saw that Yudhisthira looks a mess, look grief-stricken. So he who is lying on a bed of arrows, who knows how much pain that was? If we get a little bee sting or a sliver or what to speak of, he was in pain. I mean, he transcended the pain, but there was bodily pain. We can only imagine. But he stepped outside of his own pain and began pacifying the Pandavas, headed by Yudhisthira and Queen Kunti. So I'm going to read his words. It's about 5 verses and Prabhupada's purports. The sons of Maharaj Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhishma Dev congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. He made it. He's the king. Bhishma Dev said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you're protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion." Now this theme, being protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion, appears several times. So listen carefully. It's being repeated on purpose. Prabhupada's purport: Maharaj Yudhisthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the Battle of Kurukshetra. Bhishma Dev could understand this, and therefore he spoke first of the terrible sufferings of Maharaj Yudhisthira. He Maharaj Yudhisthira, was put into difficulty by injustice only, and the battle of Kurukshetra was fought to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he, that's Yudhisthira, should not regret the great massacre. He wanted to point out particularly that they were always protected by the Brahmanas, the Lord, and religious principles. As long as they were protected by these three important items, there was no cause for disappointment. Thus, Bhishma Dev encouraged Maharaj Yudhisthira to dissipate his despondency. Thus, Bhishma Dev encouraged Maharaj Yudhisthira to dissipate his despondency. As long as a person is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency, however trying the circumstances of life. Bhishma Dev, as one of the authorities in the line, wanted to impress this point upon the Pandavas. So I'll emphasize the point. We'll read a little bit further and come back to the point, because that's what we're reading about, is this point. He's going to speak about time causing reversals. It's a word that Prabhupada used. It's not something I grew up using in regular vocabulary of speaking, but I know what reversal is. You're going along in this direction, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're going in that direction. And you didn't even change gears. You're just like going in reverse. So you're going along the path of life, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And before you know it, you're not going that way anymore. Something else is happening. Like, what's happening? Reversals. And the teaching that Bhishma Dev is going to give is that time is the cause, and who stops time? And don't try to understand the reason behind why time does this instead of that. So here you are, you're in the midst of this reversal. And the Lord has a plan, and fulfill his plan. He wants you to rule. Here he is, ask him. He wants you to rule. So all this happened because of that plan of the arrangements of time. So now when we find ourselves, we may not have Krishna standing right there we can ask, but we may find ourselves in situations where we don't know why, but things that were going along like this are now going along like that. We can have maybe some indications, something perhaps over there and something perhaps over there. Like people ask sometimes, if you don't know what the cause of your suffering is, then how can you learn a lesson? Karma doesn't stand up and say, well, you did this, and so that. It's very complex. The law of karma, because we're doing something all the time, and there's always reacting for something that we do, unless we're in transcendence. So it's very complicated. You can't just not know one-to-one correlation. That happened because of this. But there's a cause, and there's the effect of the cause. And time moves the effect. Time moves matter. And we don't see time moving matter. We don't see time. When we see the movement of matter, the movement of events, and time is moving. Time is moving. My mind is going to a discussion with a young girl in college. It is ISKCON Hare Krishna girl. And she said, I remember going to the temple and my father had to hold me up just so I could see the deities. Like when you go to the temple, you may have to have your mother or father lift you up so you can see Kishore Kishori, and you smile and okay, back down again. Yeah. But you know, your time is going to change all that, unless there's some reversal that we don't know about. And you'll be able to see without being, anyway. And so time moves things. And things come and things go. And then they're gone. And you have a memory, and even the memory gets gone. And so when you're in the midst of a reversal, without naming things, there's reversals going on in the world today, that some are affecting us directly and some are a little more remote, but there's reversals. And when it's causing some negative emotion or mind that's turbulent because of the circumstance, the advice that's being given is three things. The circumstance you can't change. Here's what you need to do. You look at these three things. Have I been acting according to principles of Dharma? The answer is no, then fix it. And if the answer is yes, have I been acting under the guidance of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas to carry out my life in a dharmic way? If the answer is no, then fix it. But if the answer is yes, then have I been acting according to the codes of Dharma under the guidance of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas for the pleasure of Krishna? If the answer is no, then fix it. That's something internal, because that's something you can do. You can't change the circumstance, the reversal, or whatever it is that's unpleasant. But you can look inside and you look at those three things: Dharma, guidance, and pleasing the Lord. So then we'll go on, because it'll circle around and say it again. Okay, text 13, chapter 9. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great general Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal because of your actions. So she's present. He's not making them feel bad. He's expressing his empathy for her circumstance. Purport: the sufferings of Kunti Devi are doubly lamented. She suffered greatly because of early widowhood and to get her minor children brought up in the royal family. And when her children were grown up, she continued to suffer because of her son's actions. She suffered so her sufferings continued. This means that she was destined to suffer by providence, and this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. Easier said than done, right? I was having a discussion with a godbrother a few days back, and he was quoting something from Chanakya Pandit, and I was quoting something from Krishna book. And it was saying the same thing as this sentence. The Chanakya Pandit saying is, as gold is tested by rubbing on stone, so also the greatness of a person can be tested under adversity. That's not verbatim, it's close. And Prabhupada's one sentence, it's in chapter 89 of Krishna book, but it's, from the 10th canto Bhagavatam, where Bhrigu kicks Vishnu in the chest. And so it's, the statement is quite similar. The greatness of a person can be evaluated or estimated how he deals with adverse circumstances or something like that. It's more nicely worded. Deals with adversity. So we all have, different degrees at different times in different ways, and sometimes more, and sometimes less, and sometimes too much. It happens. So he's speaking in this is their mother. He's pacifying Yudhisthira. He's speaking about his mother, who they have unlimited affection for and regard for. And she's a pure devotee. She knows Krishna, and it just has to accept it. It's not like accepting it means you get numb. But when the will of providence is there, you accept it. You go back to look at back there somewhere, was I acting according to principles of Dharma? Was I acting under the guidance? So you check the box for Yudhisthira. It's yes, yes, and yes. He gets the perfect score. So there's no cause for despondency, and same for Kunti. This means that she was destined to suffer by providence, and this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. Here's another statement. Prabhupada in Los Angeles explaining the word dhira from chapter 6 Bhagavad Gita. Very memorable section of that lecture series. Dhira means one who is undisturbed. Then Prabhupada said, when there's no cause for disturbance, it remained undisturbed, that's not something wonderful. But when there's cause for disturbance and one remains undisturbed, that's wonderful. Those are three ways of saying the same thing this is saying. One has to tolerate without being disturbed. Tolerate doesn't just mean that this higher tolerance isn't just grit your teeth and say, okay, I'm going to keep going. I'll tolerate it though. That's not the meaning. It's shelter in Krishna. And that's where you're not disturbed because you have Krishna's shelter. And here comes, the cold weather of Chicago, or here comes the hot weather of Chicago, or here comes this feature of duality, that feature of duality. We came across it just in Prabhupada's purports in relation to his Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was saying to push on the Hare Krishna movement, there's difficulty, but we keep going. There's a mission and there's shelter, and that gives you this capacity to be tolerant, more tolerant than a tree, is the position of being the servant of Krishna. And if you're from the heart and soul situated like that, you can tolerate difficulties, whatever it is, the weather, or someone says something nasty, or there's a health problem or something. What are you going to do? Some people in this world are nasty. Doesn't mean you just become a human punching bag and just keep getting hit, but you don't get all absorbed in the negative emotion space, and without being disturbed, you tolerate, and then you choose a course of action. Okay, so next, text 14. Bhishma says, in my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. Purport. There is control by time all over the space within the universe, as there is control by time over all the planets. All the big, gigantic planets, including the sun, are being controlled by the force of air. Did you know that? This is Vedic wisdom. It's not, modern scientists don't say, yeah, of course we know the sun is controlled by air. They don't say that. As the clouds are carried by the force of air. Similarly, the inevitable kala, or time, controls even the actions of the air and other elements. So let's do this. I'm going to do a little Vedic cosmology class for 5 minutes. Where did Dhruva go after he ruled his father's kingdom for 60,000 years? Where did he go? Dhruvaloka. Congratulations. And where is Dhruvaloka? Here's where Dhruvaloka is. It's at the topmost region of the heavenly realm. So there's Bhuvar, and Swarga Lokas. And when you look up into the sky, Vedic cosmology says what you're looking at is from Bhuloka, you're looking at Bhuvar and Swarga Loka. That's like, the heavenly bodies that are moving. And they're moving with their right side, they're moving counterclockwise. No, they're moving clockwise. They're moving clockwise around the pole star, or Dhruvaloka. Now, Dhruvaloka is way up there, so vertically they're below, but they're circumambulating, like you circumambulate Tulsi Devi, or the deity or something. With your right side, you circumambulate clockwise. So, according to the 5th canto Bhagavatam, just as, listen carefully, just as Dhruva controlled his life heirs to the point where the universe had become suffocated because the movement of air in the universe was stopped, right? Yes? Yes, okay. So he's doing the same thing in Dhruvaloka. There's prana, or air, is called, there's a Sanskrit term I forget, ropes of air that are from Dhruvaloka connected to all the planets. Ropes of air. Who sees ropes of air? But the Vedas, 5th canto, and other parts of the Vedas teach. And then there's this other, forget the Sanskrit name, air that moves those ropes of air. And so the planets are moving. And what's moving the air is time. Fascinating, huh? So now, that's the planets are moving that way. They're moving clockwise. But which way is the sun moving? It's moving counterclockwise. It's moving clockwise with the Kala Chakra, the wheel of time. So within the course of 24 hours, the sun does one full rotation. And the sun is moving counterclockwise very slowly. 2 motions by the sun. Got it? Maharaj Parikshit says, wait a minute. 5th canto. You said this and then you said that. Can you explain? Clockwise, counterclockwise? And then he gives us a really cool answer. He said, picture a potter's wheel. And the potter's wheel is moving really fast, clockwise. And then think of some ants that are on the potter's wheel moving really fast clockwise, but they're walking very slowly counterclockwise. In the course of 1 year, the sun makes a complete rotation while every day it's making a complete rotation. And that's how the universe is moving. Kala Chakra, the wheel of time, is moving by the force of air under the control of time. Now, time is not different than Krishna, correct? Time I am, kalos me. So it's Krishna that's moving all these things. The way, this way, that way. In my opinion, this is due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as clouds are carried by the wind. So similarly, the inevitable time, kala, controls even the actions of the air and other elements. Everything, therefore, is controlled by the supreme kala, a forceful representative of the Lord within this material world. Thus, Yudhisthira should not be sorry for the inconceivable action of time. Everyone has to bear the actions and reactions of time as long as he is within the conditions of the material world. Yudhisthira should not think that he has committed sins in his previous birth and is suffering the consequence. We might think like that, but that's not you. We're not Yudhisthira either. Even the most pious has to suffer the condition of material nature. But a pious man is three things: faithful to the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, following the religious principles. The three guiding principles should be the aim of life, which should not be disturbed by the tricks of eternal time. Even the great controller of the universe, Brahmaji, is also under the control of that time. Therefore, concluding statements. One should not grudge being thus controlled by time, despite being a true follower of religious principles. So next time you meet somebody that says one of those common things, why do bad things happen to good people? Either themselves or someone dear to them. They're such a good person and this bad thing happened to this good person. Why did that happen? You can open the Srimad Bhagavatam and, if you've understood it and have faith in it, you can explain it. One more sentence and we're done. The text 15. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses? In the presence of King Yudhisthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Bhima, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. With all of those superlative situations, still the Pandavas had difficulties. So what to speak of ourselves? So we're like pretty insignificant. So something to an insignificant person like us, some inevitable time reversal happens. You don't like go whining and complaining. It's not going to make the situation any different than what the situation is. You accept it. And somehow, just like, it's not nice to be in the midst of an epidemic that's gone all over the world called now a pandemic. That's what, far I understand what the meaning means. Epidemic is local and pandemic is worldwide. So, and then lockdown and this and that. And it's not nice. And it's nice. It's nice in the sense that many devotees now have really improved their sadhana because they're too busy. I just saw a headline where, is it Pope Francis? Is that the Catholic Church Pope? His name's Francis. Said, when the pandemic is over, don't get back to, being too busy. That's not the word that he used, but something like that. Don't get just caught up in the mode of passion again. Go, 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 and get stuff done. And fruitive activity. That's this realm where we are, and we do stuff because we want stuff. So that's this place, and you live like that, and Kamesha, Krodesha. It's not maybe, perhaps, sometimes. It's just a principle. Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajo Guna Samudbhava. So having this opportunity to hear and read more, as many devotees are doing, reading groups and different things, so many different things. Don't let it fade when that day comes that it starts to get back to normal, whatever back to normal means. All kinds of predictions are saying there's going to be phase 2 that's going to be worse than phase 1. And it's not like scare tactics. It's just people that they're scientists and they know how it works. Without going into details, because you all are overburdened by hearing all the news of the mutations of the virus and more virulent and so on. So don't expect it to get normal again, whatever that is. One thing we can count on: people are passionate, and they're going to find out a way to get things back to sense gratification standard. They'll find out some way somehow. And now, what's our business? Our business is to understand as best we can, with elevation of consciousness through improved hearing and chanting, why do these things happen? What's this movement of time that's going on and moving things in cycles and so forth? And what's our real mission in life? Is it just like get back to normal, or what's our mission in life? What's our mission in life? It's abundantly available in Prabhupada's books, and as our organization in general, this is my experience from doing this morning and evening. I'm finding the questions are getting such that I can understand the devotees are reading Prabhupada's books now. Hint. It makes the mind more inquisitive, and it makes the inquisitive mind thinking in a deeper sense of what's the cause with this effect, or how does this fit with that. It's not just analytical, it's spiritual. Consciousness is becoming spiritually elevated by that increased hearing and chanting. So that's what we do when reversals happen. Take shelter of hearing and chanting. I'll end with this. I just got a letter from a devotee doctor in China. And they know that because I sent a couple of messages, how's it going? And they sent back a message, don't worry, we're okay. Because they're in a field that they don't have to deal with coronavirus in the hospital where they work, and they have a whole team. Now, life has become more busy for them because of the coronavirus situation, not because they have to deal with coronavirus patients. But they're rising to the occasion, and they're doctors that are becoming devotional, not like chanting 16 rounds or anything, but becoming devotional. Go ahead. And it's helping them, the seed of Krishna Bhakti is helping the leader of that group, and then the followers, the members of that group, that team in the hospital, feel Krishna's shelter. It's like really nice. Really nice. So for those who have the good fortune of having the seed of bhakti being brought into their life. Whoever is online, that's all of us have received the seed of bhakti somewhere. That's why we're here together. And so this is an incubation time, the incubation of bhakti time. And then consider, how can we, having received it, receive it more thoroughly and extend the opportunity to others. Like, just here's, for example, in the past 2 years, there's been a very strong encouragement for our ISKCON devotees to distribute sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. So now many people have sets of Srimad Bhagavatam in their home. Probably you all here have sets of Bhagavatam in your home. So now that you have it, comes reading it, and reading it in when there's time to do it, and in the association. And so it's expanding the seed of bhakti, and then thinking of different ways of giving others that same opportunity that don't yet have a set of Srimad Bhagavatams in their home. You know, the pandemic situation makes it difficult. But there are those that are considering different ways, X, Y, Z, and sets of Srimad Bhagavatam are being distributed, even, in the self-quarantined space of their home, without going into how they're doing that. But and this is our life, to receive and to give what we've received. And this, now back to the theme of 3 things. When you're passing through some difficulty in life, don't just get absorbed in the difficulty and how to address the difficulty and the feelings connected to the difficulty. I mean, you can do that if you want. You can do that if you want. But recommended is you look within and say, and in the decision-making process of my life, have I been abiding by codes of Dharma? Have I been under the guidance of qualified Brahmanas and Vaishnavas? And in doing those Dharma things under guidance, is my intention to please Krishna? So do that internal check on a regular basis. And if there's need to adjust something or improve something, that's where your energy should go. And if the answer is you're doing reasonably well, then no cause for despondency over the difficult situation. Situations can be very difficult without listing, such as they can be very difficult. I think we've probably all known our own varieties of difficulty in situations, and others close to us, dear to us, that are passing through something or have passed through something, etc. That's the reality check that we should do, the looking within and improving within, and then receiving the resources that help us strengthen that and adjust that and refine that and purify that, and then extend that to others. So I think that's, I can think of 10 other things to say, but I'll stop and see if there's some discussion. So what we've been doing is that the persons that are assembled, they can ask first, and then I'll give people that are online to have an opportunity to send in a text message and we can read it out. Does anybody here would like to raise something? Yes. So the people online, can you speak into the microphone, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you were saying about how that everyone has difficulties in their life.
Yeah.
And how do you tolerate them?
How do you tolerate? But there's 2 things. One is take shelter of Krishna. That gives you this, that gives you spiritual strength to tolerate. And taking shelter of Krishna means there's some service relationship between you and Krishna, and you do that. You take shelter of your service to Krishna. And that gives you the capacity to tolerate the temporary. Because the temporary is temporary, it's going to come and go, whatever the temporary is. It can be somebody said something, or you stubbed your toe, or something. You can tolerate something that's uncomfortable or painful if your consciousness is in a higher place. So the higher place consciousness is shelter in Krishna and your service to Krishna. So I'm responding to how do you tolerate? And then another very important one is to recognize that all things of this world are temporary. Just like the happiness is temporary, the misery is also temporary. So you see the temporary nature of whatever it is and the emotion connected to whatever it is, it's temporary. Like clouds in the sky. When we were kids, I remember this little thing we did. We'd sit there, look at the clouds, and then try to identify the cloud as taking a certain shape. Then I remember one, there's a lion or a dragon. And then it moved and it became a pussycat. And then it was nothing. It was neither a lion or a pussycat or a dragon. It was just a cloud in the sky. So we perceive things and our perception is faulty and it's temporary. So detachment, tolerance, some element of detachment is recognized as temporary. It comes and it goes. Now let me take shelter of something that's not temporary, something that's really near to me and dear to me, and who I really am is I'm Krishna's servant, and here's some service I can do for Krishna. And you do some of that. Go listen to your kirtans or something that, gives you a sense of Krishna connection. Yeah. Anyone else? Over here, look at this.
So I have
This button. It's a tricky microphone. She knows how to make it work. But you're a teenager, you should know how to make it work.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I have 2 questions to ask.
Okay, take it a little further away from your mouth though. There we go.
So my first question is that as I was reading a Krishna storybook, in the stories of Rukmani Devi. So is Radharani and Rukmani the same?
No. Satyabhama and Radharani are the same. Huh?
So is Rukmani and Radharani the same thing?
No, yeah, that was your question. I said no. Satyabhama. Satyabhama. Who's Satyabhama? The daughter of Satrajit. Anyway, if you read that section, it's a nice one. The Shamataka jewel story, Satyabhama.
So my second question is that as I was reading in the Bhagavad Gita.
In the Bhagavad Gita.
So I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita currently, and in the Bhagavad Gita, I never some of the details mentioned about Radharani. So
Keep going. They're messing up. Go ahead.
So Radharani, why isn't Radharani mentioned a lot?
In Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah.
Because she wasn't on the battlefield. She doesn't have anything to do on the battlefield. She's off in Vrindavan, waiting for Krishna to come back. She's not on the battlefield. But if you want to know something, give her she has to change the batteries. If you want to know something more detail about Rukmini and Krishna and Satyabhama and Krishna, it's a really far out description by Rupa Goswami called Vidagdha Madhava. It's really far out. It's like way up there. But it's described how Radharani becomes Satyabhama and Chandravali becomes Rukmini. And then the other gopis become wives of Krishna. That's like 301. It's not even 201. It's really up there. Okay. Vidagdha Madhava. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
This is a role reversal. The younger devotees are usually quiet. You're next. You got to ask a question, okay? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my question was, how do you effectively practice detachment without like just ignoring everything?
How do you pass the test?
No, how do you effectively practice detachment?
How do you effectively practice detachment? Okay. That sounds like a serious question. Well, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita is what is called, chapter 5, what is called detachment is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. So linking oneself with the Supreme, that's yoga. So our yoga is bhakti yoga. The more you become linked with Krishna, the more you're detached from what's disconnected from Krishna, or the separated material energy. Now the separated material energy looks attractive. That's where attachment is, because we see it as an object to enjoy. Whatever, different people see different objects as objects to enjoy. Some object for some people, let's say an alcoholic. For someone that's not, doesn't like alcohol, it's not like, that's not an object of enjoyment. But for them, they're addicted. So that's an object of enjoyment. So when you see material nature as meant for your enjoyment, that's attachment. And detachment is Krishna's energy meant for Krishna's enjoyment. That's detachment. So detachment is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, chapter 5. So how you practice detachment practically is attachment to Krishna. So then supposing, here's another one, supposing you're not there yet, that's a nice idea, and I'm way down here and I'm not attached to Krishna yet. So how do I practice detachment? So it's a little bit like the answer I just gave to Madhava. That is, with knowledge comes detachment. Jnana Vairagya is a couplet found throughout the Vedas. Knowledge in the temporary nature of things, then you can be detached from it. It's like, now you see it, now you don't. Now you see it, now you don't. And it keeps happening. Now, a person in knowledge is temporary. So I don't get attached to something that's temporary, because what I really want is happiness that isn't temporary. I want happiness that doesn't stop. So attachment, you don't think clearly. Their knowledge is gone. Maya pratigyana, the knowledge, the intelligence is taken away by Maya. So if you read Bhagavad Gita and etc., you do devotional activity, then knowledge will awaken naturally, and then detachment. So read Bhagavad Gita, or read Ramayana, or read Bhagavatam. Read here gives awakening of the soul's purified state of consciousness, and knowledge is already there. Then you can be detached. That's how you do it practically. Here she goes.
What in Golokan, what does Indra go like? Does Indra live up than uh, Krishna in the sky?
Okay, let me repeat back what I think you're asking. Krishna Loka is here. Is Indra Loka higher in the sky than Krishna Loka?
Yeah.
That's your question?
Yeah.
No way.
Actually, her doubt is like during this when Indra when in Govardhan Lila, Indra destroys whole Vrindavan. So she's thinking if in Goloka if there is sky, that means Indra is higher. He's living higher than Krishna.
That's it? Nope. Trying to think of a worldly example. In Chicago, there's an Indian embassy. Is that right? You don't know, but there is. You know what an embassy is? No? Okay. So I'm born in America. I have an American passport. So if I want to get a visa that allows me to go to India, I'm not going to do anything like that soon because of this coronavirus thing. But if I wanted to get a visa to go to India, I have to go to the Indian embassy. And they have the authority to give me a visa to go to India or not. They could say no, they could say yes. And when you go inside the door of the Indian embassy, it's India. It's India paper cups, and it's India water, and it's India stationery, and it's Indian law. If I break a law, I'm not in the Indian embassy in Chicago. I'm subject to Indian law because little India, legally, lawfully, it's India. And when I go out the door, now I'm in Chicago again. But so you understand what I'm saying? I hope. Okay. So similarly, this is Krishna Loka up here. So Krishna has embassies. Over here is Vrindavan. It's the same as Krishna Loka up there in the spiritual sky. It's here. It's the same, non-different. So Indra, when he was pouring down rain, it was the embassy, or the counterpart of Krishna Loka. But Indra is not. Indra is way in the structure. He's inside the universe, and Krishna Loka is outside the universe. So Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan are in this universe, but it's Krishna's showing his pastimes in this universe. And Indra saw it and went, hey, he's stopping my puja. I'm going to show him. I'm big, he's small. So he did what he did. He lost. Krishna won. But it's not that Indra is above Krishna Loka. Indra is in the heavenly realm, and the heavenly realm is within inside this universe. The universe is like a coconut. And then there's the shell of the coconut. And then there's the vastness of the spiritual sky beyond the coconut. That's where Krishna Loka is. But inside the coconut, there's the earth planet. And there's the heavenly planets. And Krishna has pastimes in this earthly planet, in a place called Vrindavan. That's non-different, like the embassy. Non-different. And the laws of Krishna apply in Krishna Loka. The laws of Krishna apply here also. All right? If you make sure she gets She's saying yes, I'm not sure. Thank you, that's a nice question. How many? Only 5, right? Okay, go ahead.
Maharaj, I'm thinking about a situation when a devotee or any other person who gets the reversals one after another, one after another.
I know some people like that.
And there is no stop. For the whole life, I've seen people getting reversals.
Yeah.
And eventually, those people will lose the faith on Krishna.
Well, not necessarily. I know people that don't lose their faith in Krishna and have been through reversal after reversal.
How can one maintain the mind without getting disturbed, tolerate without disturb?
That, just ask him. He's got the answer. By attachment, you can be detached. Look at the Pandavas. That's this situation. And it wasn't just one thing. It was another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing.
But for a neophyte, how?
Faith in Krishna. No, you're saying one will lose faith, and I'm saying not necessarily.
I've been talking to one person, just the beginner in a stage. Initially, it's having good faith. Later, it's going down.
Too much tribulation. You know, we understand. It's right in the story of Bali Maharaj, where he was put into tribulation by Vamana. And Prabhupada explains in that connection that Krishna never gives us a tribulation beyond which we cannot succeed and maintain faith. He'll support us. So our tribulation, this person or my tribulation or anyone's tribulation is nothing compared to, let's say, Prahlad Maharaj. Or let's say, you know, here's a worldly person, not just a Bhagavatam personality. Ask your friend or this person to read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor, Frankl, Frankel, I think, KL, Viktor Frankl, Frankl, a Jewish man who was in a Nazi concentration camp and survived. So whatever this person is nothing compared to what he went through. And he's explaining how to get on the other side. Anyone else? In the room, if not, we'll go to the online. Okay, she has.
Maharaj, you mentioned you cannot tolerate, when you get something like irritates, you cannot grudging your teeth, controlling your anger, but, inside you have. But I feel that is the process, right? Because I cannot go to that level where I don't know how, like, you all tolerate, but my level is maybe I used to be like yelling or, showing my anger.
Your daughter's nodding her head.
Now probably like I'm understanding, okay, I have anger, but maybe like control, I hear it.
Okay.
So is that the process?
Yeah, that's a step. It's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
But it's like a bungee cord. You know what a bungee cord is, right? So it's like a bungee cord. Wait a while, and there comes the anger again. So you need to go beyond the gritting your teeth or just controlling anger. You have to go to the place where you have Krishna's shelter. And then it dissolves the anger. It moves you to the mode of goodness instead of the mode of passion, which is the cause of the anger. So it's not just goodness, it's transcendence. And that shelter of Krishna. He'll tell you all about it.
I have a follow-up question. I want to know the people who control, have tolerated the anger or tolerated the situation, how they feel, how their body, situation, feelings.
Well, it's not just relief. I mean, that's the negative. There's the positive. I mean, it goes in degrees. It's not like one size fits all, but there's a sense of connection with Krishna. There's a contentment in the feeling of the sense of connection with Krishna that gives me the strength to overcome anger. I'm remembering one time in one of the Bhakti Vriksha gatherings at Rajiv's home, there was a man, he had the icebreaker thing, and anybody want to share something? And he was like, I got to share something. Remember that fellow?
Yes.
He said, my whole life I've been prone to anger. Remember that? It's a nice story. He went on for some time. He said, I'm not angry like I go beating up people, but I've had this thing. I've taken anger management courses and tried this and tried that, and it's still there. And I've always had some attraction for Bhagavad Gita. So, but I've never really understood it. Whenever there's a Bhagavad Gita discussion, I go take. So I moved here to Palatine, and I heard of this Bhagavad Gita discussion, so I came. And I think for the first time, I'm understanding Bhagavad Gita. And I don't know, I would guess he's in his 30s, early or mid 30s, something like that. You know the person who I'm talking about?
No. First I thought I know, but after that, I'm not able to put your face.
So then he said, like at work, something goes wrong and everybody's just involved in pointing finger at each other and blaming everybody. And it's all this, they're doing nothing about taking care of the problem. They're just like all this. And I get so disgusted. I get really angry. And the same thing just happened. And I just didn't get angry. I was just amazed. How's that? And then I realized it's because this Bhagavad Gita discussion is helping me getting a sense of Krishna connection. And I didn't have to struggle with it. It just dissipated. Exactly what the very word that's used, the adjective, become dissipated, this intolerance or a situation like that. So it's just spiritual. It may happen differently with different people, but that's the principle. So just stay with the bhakti process. You stay away from the temporary by knowledge. Don't take shelter of it. When you see it's coming, okay, I recognize it's coming. I'm not going to take shelter there. I'm going to take shelter over here. Same answer I gave to your son. Same answer, just saying it in a different way. Okay. Now we're ready for online. I'm going to wait for another question from you. You think of another one. Okay? Okay.
Question from Sri Radhika Mataji.
Okay.
How do we understand Bhishma Dev's statement that Queen Kunti suffered due to the actions of her sons?
Well, the circumstances in her life that had to do with the animosity of Duryodhana towards Bhima, or the animosity towards Arjuna by Karna, and so forth. No, she was put into difficult situations, not by her doing, by the animosity of others towards her sons.
Another question from Sri Radhika Mataji. Is it correct to understand the qualitative difference between the lamentation of a pure devotee, such as Yudhishthir Maharaj, is for the suffering of others, whereas our lamentations are due to the frustration of our own sense gratification?
Yes, but even his emotion towards, maybe we should turn the air conditioning on again. Although it's noisy, it's getting a little warm. So his lamentation was Maya, like Arjun's not wanting to fight was Maya, because it was about what was, his sense of ownership of the problem, the problem being the massacre, and he was owning the problem, but he wasn't owning the problem because it's something that Krishna wanted. You texting back a message?
Yashodanandan Prabhu said there is some question on the ISKCON Chicago Facebook. We are not able to see here.
Okay, so keep going.
Okay. Material Sri Radhika Mataji's next question. Material lamentations pull us down. How is it that Yudhishthir Maharaja's lamentation, even though it was spiritual, was pulling him down?
I couldn't follow. Say it again.
Material lamentations pull us down. How is it that Yudhishthir Maharaja's lamentation, even though it was spiritual, was pulling him down?
Well, it wasn't spiritual. His lamentation wasn't spiritual. He was taking ownership of something that was Krishna was the owner of. The massacre was Krishna's plan, not Yudhishthir's plan for the avarice of becoming the ruler. That wasn't Yudhishthir. He was ready to walk away.
Question from Sanchari. It's relatively easier to see the movement of Krishna's hand in our lives in the time immediately after overcoming difficulties. Is the real test of Maya is how we stay connected even in times of happiness?
Well, it's the test of Maya is not just wait till it's over and then in a reflective moment see the hand of Krishna. It's staying there even while it's happening. So I'm giving a yes to her question, but a qualified yes. I mean, say the same thing in a different way. The essence of material consciousness is we're at the center. I'm looking at this dartboard, and I wonder how you can put a dartboard in your living room. But there's the bullseye. So the bullseye with that green dart that's right in the center, that's, Krishna's pleasure is everything. And we're not there. We're at the center. My pleasure is everything. So it's the distress and happiness are both tests of who's at the center. Is Krishna's pleasure at the center or my pleasure is at the center? So it's not just one is more than the other. They're both equally testing or telling. And tribulation is especially telling. That's very clear from Chanakya Pandit's statement and Brigu's determination of who's the greatest. When there's tribulation, how do you handle it?
This question is from Stephen. How do you distinguish detachment from non-attachment or non-possessiveness, aparigraha?
Well, the answer is attachment to Krishna. That's how you tell the difference. Next.
This question is from Satish Vatnakar Prabhu. How to best respond to people who say, nobody has seen God, you don't know anyone who has seen God?
I can see it on the screen. It's like a nice question. How how to best respond to people who say, nobody has seen God. You don't know anyone who has seen God. Well, you may not know somebody that hasn't seen God or that has seen God. That doesn't mean there isn't somebody that has seen God. You're not the center of the universe. And there are persons who see God. And the qualification to see God is you have to have the eyes to see, and the eyes to see is the eyes of devotion. And if you don't have the eyes of devotion, you can't see. You can see but not see. Pashyati na pashyati. So that's the kind of argument that comes from those that have faith in their limited senses. The limited senses don't have the capacity to see, but with spiritual sense and by mercy of Krishna, one can see what another person cannot see.
Question from Amara Mataji. When I think about cultivation of qualities like tolerance, it sounds like it can be done by putting efforts, but when practical application time comes, reactions appear as though involuntary.
That's right.
Is it the mercy factor that will actually manifest the cultivation into practice?
Well, purity helps. That was our question last night. With purity, then you can see. And without purity, mercy can intervene even if you're not pure, but generally purity is a prerequisite. So how do we become pure? Then ask that question. By following the process of purification. The bhakti process is that principal process of purification. That's it. Okay. And we got lots of chiefs and not too many Indians here. Yes. Microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In one of the Bhakti Paksha sessions, there was some conversation about when there is a guru, so when any disciple comes to him, and guru studies the disciple also. That's what was mentioned in the.
Yes.
But when guru, I believe is a pure devotee.
I'm listening.
And because pure devotee knows the past and present of whenever he sees any person.
Well, let's be careful. Is guru equal to super soul? No.
Next to super soul, yeah.
But representative of, but doesn't mean omniscient. Super soul is omniscient, yes?
Yeah.
And is guru super soul? No. Omniscient? No. So let's be careful.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, if that is the case, then that's fine. That's fine, yeah, thank you.
Representative of means acting on the authority of. Like, here's something that Prabhupada said. I know what I need to, Krishna gives me the understanding directly and indirectly what I need to know in order to carry out my service. That's the representative of Krishna, the unquestionable, pure representative of Krishna. He knows what he needs to know to carry out his service. Now, Prabhupada sometimes adjusted things. He would try this as strategy. Wasn't going so well, he tried that as a strategy, and then he would adjust something else. You know, following Krishna's indication doesn't mean he was omniscient. He was following Krishna's indication and, you know, continually refining, and, you know, so it's not like everything for him was subjective. He's taking dictation from Krishna. But in terms of XYZ personalities, he would give them some service to give them the opportunity to purify themselves. And sometimes they would mess up.
Yeah, that's something.
But he was giving an opportunity to purify themselves by Krishna's indication. And then the living entity has choices once that opportunity is presented. You follow what I'm saying? He's
To
an
some extent.
agent of, but he's not super soul.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Well, just like you. You're an agent. You're when you're acting in devotional service, you're holding the microphone and asking an important question. So you're an instrument of Krishna in this immediate circumstance. Not like I understand, you know, Super Soul is using me as his instrument to ask this question so everyone can hear this important question. I'm just Krishna's instrument. But you're Krishna's instrument. You're not thinking of yourself as Super Soul, but you're acting as Krishna's instrument. And me too, by responding. And my frame of reference is what I've understood from our founder Acharya in his teachings, and not just one incident, but the big picture. So it's important to have become more clear and more clear and more clear and more clear and more clear on what it means to be a representative of Krishna. Nimitta matram bhavya savya sachin, in the language of Bhagavad Gita. Become my instrument. Nimitta, become my instrument. And the spiritual master is an instrument on behalf of Krishna to give Krishna tattva. And to do that doesn't mean that the spiritual master all of a sudden goes from the living entity to Vishnu tattva. It becomes, you know, super soul, equal to super soul. No way. That's offensive, in fact. But the representative of. And the requirement is, Ye Krishna Tattva, say Guru Hoy. They must know Krishna Tattva and then speak Krishna Tattva. That's what the instrument does. They don't go in creating their ideology and calling it Krishna's ideology. They just say what's Krishna's teaching. That's Guru.
Oh, that's good.
So it doesn't mean they're omniscient.
Okay.
They know everything about everybody and, you know, time, past, present, future, and everything's like wired. That's super soul.
Okay.
Guru is not super soul. An instrument.
Thank you, Maharaj. And one more question, as you mentioned, like Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajagun Samudbhuva. So this Krodh or anger is always in the mode of passion?
It's the byproduct. It's ignorance. It's the byproduct of passion. Krodha is ignorance. It's the byproduct of passion.
So if any pure devotee becomes angry,
A pure devotee what?
becomes angry,
Well, that's not in the modes of nature. When a pure devotee becomes angry, it's not in the modes of nature.
mode of passion.
It's not in the mode of nature.
Okay.
It's neither passion nor ignorance. We're speaking pure devotee.
Yes.
Like Hanuman.
Mhm.
He's a pure devotee. He became angry. He burned Lanka.
So there is a difference between like when pure devotee becomes angry or
Yes, exactly correct.
okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, Maharajji, like in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu time, this is another question. So Hanuman, I heard like Hanuman was appeared in the form of Murari Gupta.
Okay.
So is it possible?
Why not?
Because Hanuman ji is immortal, and we believe like he is still alive. And
Well, it means an expansion of or in the mood of. There's all this technology. It's like 301 technology. A living entity can expand themselves partially. What do you think? You don't know how to do that.
we don't know. Yeah.
But it's when Krishna says do it, it's doable. Here's a description. You like to read Prabhupada's books, I know. So go to Canto 10, Chapter 8, and the final verses of the chapter, because we just finished discussing it. Shukadeva Goswami is describing the very, very, very special position of Nanda and Jasoda. And he glorifies them and glorifies them. Mother Jasoda seeing the universe within Krishna's mouth, and then how she responds. And she just gets absorbed in parental affection for Krishna. And Shukadeva Goswami says, the Vedas give revelation about the Lord in this feature, that feature, the other feature, but Mother Jasoda is beyond all that. She just sees him as her son. She saw him in those other features, but her parental affection was so strong. So then, hearing this, Parikshit Maharaj says, wow, what austerities did Nanda and Jasoda do in their previous life to get that kind of quality of love for Krishna that's so strong? Fasten your seatbelt, because what Shukadeva Goswami says is Drona and Dara, who are in the heavenly realm, took birth to become the parents of Krishna, Nanda and Jasoda. But there's some detail, really important detail. And that is Nanda and so this is the partial expansion topic. Nanda and Jasoda, they're eternal. Nanda and Jasoda are in Krishna Loka. Nanda and Jasoda are in Krishna Loka. They're expansions of Krishna's form. As eternal as Krishna is, they're co-eternal with Krishna as his mother and father. He who has no mother and father has a mother and father. Eternally. There's no birth past time in Krishna Loka. The Nanda Jasoda are there. And by the Lord's arrangement, they expand themselves as an angsa, a partial expansion of themselves, to appear in the heavenly realm as Drona and Dara. With the same mood as their counterpart, Nanda and Jasoda. And when it's time for Krishna's appearance, they get really excited. They wish to have a child, and they go to Brahma and offer prayers to Brahma. Please allow us to have the personality of Godhead as our son. He smiles. He said, just about time for Krishna's appearance. So you can take birth on earth. But they taking birth on earth, explained later, is they merge into the body of Nanda and Jasoda. When the worldly pastimes of Krishna that are otherwise not manifest in his embassy over here in Vrindavan, he manifests his pastimes. But he manifests his pastime with mother and father, Nanda and Jasoda. But they're in Krishna Loka. But they're eternally, there's unmanifest pastimes here in the embassy realm, in Vrindavan, in the earthly realm. It's not different than Krishna Loka. And when Krishna performs his pastimes, Drona and Dara enter into the body of Nanda and Jasoda. And then when his pastimes are over, Krishna sends him back to the heavenly realm. But it's just partial expansion. It's not like during Krishna's pastimes, they had a sign on their door saying, sorry, we've gone to take part in Krishna's pastime. We'll be back after 125 years. It's expansions of them. And it's not just them. It's something that it's Krishna consciousness 301, but there are expansions of eternal associates of Krishna that for taking part in Krishna's pastimes. Now back to your question of Murari Gupta. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's really high technology. Here's another one on the same. I heard the recording and then read the transcription to make sure I got it straight. Prabhupada in Bombay, Juhu, morning walk, Giriraj Maharaj asking Prabhupada, when Krishna performs his pastimes, they're eternal. His Boma Lila, they're eternal. So when Krishna makes his appearance, and then somewhere else, some other universe is making his appearance, and some other universe is making it. So that's Krishna's appearing. But what about Arjuna? Because there's Arjuna and Krishna, and then there's Arjuna and Krishna, and there's Arjuna and Krishna. So does that mean there's so many Arjunas, as many as there are pastimes of Krishna in some universe? And Prabhupada said yes. That's mind-blowing, isn't it? And it's described in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, same point. When Gopakumar sees Narada Muni, and Narada Muni, I saw you here, and I saw you there, and I saw you there, and Narada said, I explained this to you already, but eternal associates of Krishna can have so many expansions. And just like, Uddhava here, he's here and he's there. So don't put it in a box, a three-dimensional space box. And then it's got to be like this, because that's my experience. This three-dimensional space. It's not like that. It's mind expanding for sure. Because we can't do this stuff. I mean, there's lots of things we can't do. It's lots of things we don't know, and there's lots of mystery. It doesn't open the door for speculation. We want to hear what the real picture is from those who know what the real picture is. We want to be really careful that we're not just getting gobbledygook. We're getting the real picture from descending knowledge sources, unbroken descending knowledge sources. And we're investing trust in our disciplic succession to receive that understanding. And then we can understand that things that are beyond our understanding, beyond our limited consciousness. And stay with it. And it's a fantastic mystery that has real answers, not the speculation kind.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, here we go.
If Krishna doesn't have any father and mother, then how can Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda and Vasudeva and
Devaki.
Devaki can be the mother and the father?
Very good question. Well, you know what the word lila means, right? Lila or pastime. Lila. Pastime. Krishna plays on his flute. That's a pastime. Or he goes out to herd the cows with the cowherd boys. That's a pastime. He lifts Govardhan Hill. That's a pastime. So Krishna has pastimes. And one of his pastimes is birth. He's the source of everything. So there's no birth. But he has a pastime of birth. Now, he doesn't have to have mother and father. Just like Lord Nrsingadev. Who was his mother and father? A pillar. And Lord Varaha, who is his mother and father? The nostril of Brahma. He doesn't need mother and father because he's the source of everything. But when he appears and performs his earthly pastimes, Krishna accepts as a pastime, he has a mother and father. So it's just a pastime. He's the source of everything. He showed Mother Jasoda, inside my mouth, there's everything, including Mother Jasoda looking inside Krishna's mouth, Everything is within Krishna. He doesn't need mother and father. But it's a loving exchange with someone that has that emotion. I'm his mother. I'm his father. It's a pastime. That's the answer. He doesn't need. It's a pastime. Just like he didn't need Arjuna to do the battle. It was already decided. But he got a chance to be his instrument. And just like you, what's your instrument of Krishna opportunities? You can ask nice questions, that's one. Do you sing sometimes too? You sing the Shringa prayers, I bet. Yeah, so that's being Krishna's instrument. You sometimes help your mom with arti? Yeah? Okay, so then you're being Krishna's instrument. That's nice being Krishna's instrument. Krishna's flute is Krishna's instrument too. But so are you, and so are each one of us when we do some service. We're trying to be Krishna's instrument. So Mother Jasoda and Nanda, they were the instruments of Krishna's pleasure, to act as if they're mother and father. They're just an instrument for Krishna's pleasure. Okay. Okay, this is the last question for sure.
From Radha Vallaprabhu, in the pastime of Avanti Brahmana, he was grossly humiliated even after he deeply connected internally to Krishna, and he was peaceful as well. So loving devotion can override any external tribulations?
Yes. Yes. When you're back to this question, how do you practice tolerance or detachment? When you're attached to Krishna, it doesn't mean you're oblivious to what's going on around you. It just doesn't push you and pull you and distort you and elate you and sadden you, and your emotional state doesn't move because you have that primary shelter in Krishna. That Krishna connection gives the detachment. And you can be, and in that detachment is saying from the temporary because of being full with contentment within. There are verses like that in Bhagavad Gita also. When one is experiencing that happiness within, they can pass through the greatest calamities and remain undisturbed. Right? See? Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.